Football Forward, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and brought to you, as always, by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. For more, visit oceanac.com. Andrew DiCecco is in the house today as we continue along on the offseason. The offseason, we'll take a quick look at the NFC North, one of the most powerful divisions in football, but we'll get a couple of quick takes from Andrew on the final day of Eagles training camp today. And Andrew, I know you're a big training camp guy, the final day of training camp, but the final day of training camp brought some bad news. Johnny Wilson lost for the season. What kind of impact do you think? I know it sounds minimal, but I think people thought he might have a little bit bigger role this year.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, it is a little bit more substantial than some may be led to believe. I mean, Johnny Wilson was going to be the 4 or 5 on this roster in terms of the wide receiver depth, and he provided more than blocking, at least what he's shown this training camp. What I've seen from him is the natural growth and progression in a second-year wide receiver. Didn't get off to the best start of training camp, wasn't playing to his size, but what I noticed within the second half, he was building confidence and really starting to become more comfortable using his size, high-pointing the football, and coming up with contested catches and developing a rapport with the different quarterbacks. So I was really looking forward to seeing what he was able to do, and it's really a shame that this happened. And I watched that happen right in front of me the other day, and it was evident that he was in a lot of pain. So a really tough break for Johnny Wilson.
Yeah, and obviously they made the trade for Mechie. I'd like to get your thoughts on him, but also Darius Cooper, a guy that you wrote about and everybody seems to be talking about. Does this open the door for and Cooper both to not only make the team, but possibly have little roles on the team?
Well, it's interesting because Mechie certainly isn't a lock, but the Eagles didn't acquire somebody this late in the game to really just let him practice for a week, and you're not really able to get an assessment. This is an opportunity for Howie Roseman to add another asset, and he will do that in any position of need if he sees fit, if he's going to better the roster. And John Mechie gives the Eagles some depth there, and obviously that's now needed. But, yeah, Darius Cooper's had a really good summer. He shows up every day, makes a play every day. They're not all splash plays, and they don't have to be, but that's what got him on the radar of Nick Sirianni. And then from there, it was just being consistent every day. He's proven that he belongs, and I've seen a lot of training camp wide receivers have, really impactful summers, and they're making highlight reel catches and all of that, but they don't always manifest into regular season success or able to parlay that into long-term success. But Darius Cooper's different. He can absolutely play, and he's done everything that he can to earn a spot on the roster.
All right, before we take a look at these NFC North teams, because this is a really good division, anything that you will be zoned in on? I know the last preseason game was painful for you. Anything you will be zoned in on in this last preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have a lot of players who have a ton of talent. They put in a significant amount of work, just like everybody else in the camp. And if they don't make it with the Eagles, they'll make it somewhere else. So I'm keeping an eye on running back Montrell Johnson Jr., and he's had a nice summer, patient runner, good contact balance. I liked him coming out of Florida, physical runner. I would also say tight end E.J. Jenkins. He's had some nice moments in camp, big-bodied pass catcher, the Eagles' second-best blocker at the tight end position, in my opinion. I would also say keep an eye on those backup offensive linemen because they didn't fare particularly well in the preseason in the second game against the Browns. So that's across the board. That's Kendall Lamb, who was signed to be the swing tackle. That's Darian Kennard, who has had a nice summer and the Eagles really like. Matt Pryor, who the Eagles are going to be looking at as probably their 6th or 7th at worst offensive lineman. So, yeah, that's something that I would look at. And then, of course, the cornerback battle, that's going to play out the rest of that game. And the Eagles have a decision to make there. And then safety, I would be surprised if Drew Makuba and Sidney Brown played in this game. So you could see a lot of Tristan McCollum and Andre Sam, as well as Maxon Hook, the undrafted rookie out of Toledo. And really, Tristan McCollum and Andre Sam could be battling for the same position as that fourth safety and core special teamer. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
All right, of course, that game tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. It's the final preseason game, which means we're down to our two final divisions. This one's the NFC North. This is a good one. This is the Lions. Let's start with them real quick. This is a Lions team, new coordinator on both sides of the ball, new center. Does this change the outlook for you at all of the Lions with all those changes?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. You always have to be mindful of that when you're looking at the season in its totality. They're probably going to get off to a slower start. They have enough playmakers there to put up a ton of points, but you have to account for that acclimation process. The Eagles also had a lot of weapons last season and a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, and it's not as simple as going out there and lining up and simply being better. You have to account for those initial growing pains. So, yeah, and the edge rushers for the Lions, I'm not 100% sold on. There's some deficiencies that they may have there on the defensive side. I don't expect them to be the dominant force that they were last season.
Yeah, you got Gibbs, awesome. I know you liked Gibbs a lot coming out of the draft last year. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams now for the full season, Laporta at tight end. Still a very explosive offense there for the Lions. We'll just see how losing their offensive coordinator factors in. And then they had so many injuries on defense last year. Could they overcome those defense? Terrion Arnold was their first-round pick a year ago. We'll see how that secondary, because they had big problems in the secondary last year. That was one of their issues.
Yeah, so they're going to have to make sure that that's shored up. Obviously, Terrion Arnold's a player that I also like coming out of Alabama, not more than Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon was my top-rated corner. But, yeah, I mean, they have some issues defensively that I think you're not quite able to mask it this year as compared to last season.
Green Bay, we saw them in the playoffs, obviously. It's Love, Jacobs, who they signed last year. They drafted Matthew Golden out of Texas. They got that wide receiving core that everybody always talks about. Like, they don't have that stud guy the last couple of years, but they just had a bunch of guys. Is this Packers team finally ready to take that next step?
I think they can. That's a team I certainly wouldn't sleep on. Say what you will about Jordan Love, but now he has he had a lot of young wide receivers who I liked, including Jaden Reed, who was a top 50 pick, and, Romeo Dobbs and all of that. But now they've added Matthew Golden, who I think is a player that can win over the top and just threaten defenses a little bit more uniquely than the players that they currently had. That should help elevate Jordan Love's game, as should Josh Jacobs, as long as he can stay healthy. That's been the big thing with him.
Yeah, and their defense, obviously, we saw them twice last year. Philadelphia saw them twice. And the playoff game, the game in Brazil, a lot different than the playoff game, that opening season to where they ended up. But, this is a team on defense that really doesn't have that standout guy. But you wonder, is the defense what kind of holds them back?
Well, I mean, they have Xavier McKinney, Edrin Cooper, Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker. They have some players there that can make an impact, but they have a sore spot at one of their corners. I really like Keyshawn Nixon, one of the best kick returners in the NFL, if not the best kick returner in the NFL. Pretty good ball skills, too. He's somebody that started out as a special teamer and has climbed. But, yeah, I mean, they have some areas that are going to be a little bit leaky, but so do most teams. I think offensively is where they're really going to make this leap in 2025.
We'll see if that defense for the Packers can step up this year for them. Obviously, they lost both games to Philadelphia last year, and we'll see if they can overtake the Lions. We'll see if Andrew likes them in the NFC North. Let's go to Minnesota. This is a team last year that surprised a lot of people because of Sam Darnold's play. But let's start with J.J. McCarthy. How do you think he will replace Darnold in that offense? How will they be different with McCarthy over Darnold?
Well, it's really an unknown entity. I wasn't super high on J.J. McCarthy coming out, and that could ultimately be what holds the Vikings back, because you don't know how fast of a start he's going to be able to get out to. And in that division, which figures to be pretty closely contested, I don't know if they can afford to do that. And I know that there are some who are pretty bullish on McCarthy, but until you see what he's able to do in the regular season when the bullets are live, so to speak, it's hard to really forecast the direction that they're going to be able to go. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Nailor, they drafted Ty Felton out of Maryland, who I was at his pro day. I'm a big fan of. And TJ Hawkinson's there, Aaron Jones. So, yeah, I mean, they have enough pieces there offensively. I just have questions about the quarterback, which obviously makes everything go.
I will say their offensive line is, one of the problems with the Vikings over the previous couple of years, their offensive line has been a disaster. Their line is starting to get a little bit better, and that should help them out. But I'm with you. I'm not a big J.J. McCarthy guy. But defensively, our buddy Isaiah Rodgers went over there. Andrew Van Ginkel made a big appearance there last year. Byron Murphy Jr. is out there. They've got some players. This is a pretty good defense.
Yeah, I like Grenard, Jonathan Grenard, who's over there too. They have some dudes there that I think can really affect the passer. Isaiah Rogers, Byron Murphy on the back end. This is going to be an interesting defense to watch. I think that will be their calling card this season. I do believe that they've done enough in the offseason to really fortify that side of the ball. But offensively, until you see what you get out of McCarthy, I think that can ultimately be what gets them off to a slow start that they may not be able to overcome.
Tell you what, the Eagles might have be wishing they kept Isaiah Rogers at that second corner spot right now. We'll get your thoughts on that second corner before we get out of here. Let's go to the Bears. They buzzed last year. They made a lot of moves, but it was a disaster of a season for them. They get the new coach. Ben Johnson's in there now. Caleb Williams, year 2. They have a bunch of weapons. They add it to the offensive line. Is this Bears offense going to be a surprise this year?
I think Caleb Williams is going to be able to take a step forward in his progression. I think the addition of Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, should really help him out. He may be an early candidate for having being a candidate among those for offensive rookie of the year. But wide receiver Roma Dunze. They have Olamide Zaccheaus, former Eagles wide receiver. DJ Moore is there. Who should be able to take a step forward, but I'm not quite sure if they have enough there to really make some noise when you look at the Lions and you look at the Green Bay Packers. But on the offensive side, and I can't forget DeAndre Swift as well. He's a really good out of the backfield and has some juice.
Well, could the difference maker for them be their defense then, Andrew? They've got a pretty good defense last year. Our buddy T.J. Edwards is over there. They've got good pass rush, got a good secondary. Kevin Byard, former Eagles safety, he moved over there, had a pretty good year. Jalen Johnson's pretty strong. I mean, could this defense be the difference for them?
Yeah, Montez Sweat. I think Jalen Johnson, you can make an argument for being the top cornerback in the NFL. T.J. Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, they have a fortified second level of that defense. That's really what they're going to have to hang their hat on, because offensively, I sort of see them as middling. Now, do I believe that Caleb Williams is going to progress here and really start to refine some areas of his game? I do. I think there's enough pieces there for him to do so, but I don't know if they're going to be consistent enough week to week with that formula that they run there in Chicago to move that forward. Defensively is where they're going to have to make their mark.
All right, the NFC North, maybe one of the more competitive divisions in football. The Lions, Packers, Bears, and Vikings. How's it going to finish up?
I'll do Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears.
Okay, Vikings and third, Bears at the bottom. That one's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see if the Lions take a step back. A lot of people think they might take that step back this year. Let's quickly take a step back before we get out of here. We mentioned Isaiah Rogers, that second cornerback spot. Kind of give us your breakdown of that, because that's probably the most unknown of all the battles right now at Eagles camp.
Yeah, 2 months ago, before training camp even happened, I posed a question to my buddy, which Eagles offseason loss will they be mostly impacted by? And I said, and he said, whoever. And I said, Isaiah Rogers is my pick because he's a plug-and-play guy. You know he fits in the system. You know how he fits in the locker room and the culture in Philadelphia, and he has some good ball skills. If you sign him, you don't have to deal with this musical chairs that's taken place this summer. So you have Keely Ringo, you have Jacorian Bennett, you have Adoree Jackson, and Mac McWilliams, the rookie fifth-round pick out of UCF. He's been cross-training. He spent most of camp at nickel. He's been working outside the last week or so. The Eagles really like him. I'm not quite sure he's ready for an expanded role. But Adoree Jackson, if the Eagles had to play a game today, would be their starting cornerback. I don't know how long that would last, but there's something to be said for a veteran who is steady, if unspectacular, probably going to give up some stuff underneath, but you know what he's going to give you. He's not going to be as high variance as some of the other players that are the options. Ultimately, I think Jacorian Bennett is the best of the bunch, and I think it's only a matter of time before he leaps Adoree Jackson and fully masters the defense and can go out there, and the Eagles will feel comfortable putting him out there on a full-time basis.
I like it. Bennett, the trade there for Bennett, that happened right before I left, and, of course, they get Jacorian Bennett for Thomas Booker, and Booker looks like he's going to start out there for the Raiders. The Eagles get Bennett, fair trade for everyone. we'll see if Howie Roseman has another deal up his sleeve. He is Andrew DiCecco. This is Football at 4. You heard it right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Our division previews, they end next week with the NFC East. You know what that means? Season's about to start, Andrew. The season is about to start, and we always appreciate your time, pal.
Thank you.